Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to, I don't know, is this episode 98 or 99, Ramsey? What are we up to?
Getting there. Getting close to the century mark.
Almost cracking it.
Mark, do you know what? I think it's, I don't know, 98 or 99. What do you think?
I think you're right there. I don't think we crossed the 100 yet, but I think we're right there.
I think we're there. So anyway, I think it's appropriate as we start to flip into add another digit to have some advisors, have some I guess actually advisors turned entrepreneurs. You guys got to correct me on this. Who have really been pushing our industry ahead. You know, trying to pull us into sort of the next age of digital business here. So I want to introduce Pat Kelly, co-founder and CEO of Signal Advisors, and Joe Waltenbaugh. Joe, I hope I pronounced your name right.
You got it.
I got it. Excellent. Vice President of Advisor Success at Signal Advisors. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
You.
We're
Glad to
excited
be
to be here. I've been a long time listener of the show, so it's surreal to be with you all. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Hey, listen. Well, it was only a matter of time till we got you on here, which is terrific. So, I guess let's sort of start out with an easy question, which is tell us about Signal Advisors. But then I think the one that'll take a little bit of time, and I think is also going to be probably exceptionally interesting for our guests, is backstory. So I don't know, Pat, do you want to tell people, who is Signal Advisors and what is it that you do?
Yeah, I mean, Signal Advisors, I'd love to. Signal Advisors is really next-gen distribution for financial advisors, independent financial advisors. We believe that we need to empower the next wave of independent financial advisors with technology in order to build their businesses and help them be better CEOs. I think traditionally you see advisors think about themselves as advisors, and we actually think about these businesses as businesses, and it's like, okay, how do you have the tools that you need in order to scale and grow it as a business owner, as opposed to just kind of, a financial advisor. You got to wear both hats. It's a difficult task, and when we make that task a lot easier. A lot of it's software, but a lot of it's top of the line service, and there's a lot of unique things that we do. Like we pay people in one day on annuity commissions, so 45 times faster than anybody else. Is kind of like a headline thing that people get excited about, but it's really how technology can enable financial advisors to be better business owners and build out businesses that help more people.
Excellent. And so tell us tell us the backstory. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is not the first startup by any stretch, but there's a lot of continuity. When and why did both of you sort of wake up and say, hey, we this is what the business is, and there's got to be a better way to do this?
Well, Joe and I go way back. Joe was at my wedding. Joe was at my wedding. I've known Joe for 10 years. I think we started 4 businesses together. So Joe, I mean, you'd be as good as I had to talk about this one. You want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We always joke. We do have a very similar background. I mean, we started at the same place. I mean, Pat and I met in 2009 or 10 at an internship, Northwestern Mutual. So we kind of got recruited into that college kind of career agency model where they bring in, as you are all aware, you bring in a number of people, kind of train them up, give them some opportunities, and then hope that a few of them kind of stick and become full-time advisors. And during that kind of summer leading up to our senior year, we got to know each other and, had some success as kind of building out this network, calling our parents' friends, our aunts and uncles and things like that, and kind of building out that model. And we actually did both choose to take the opportunity to go full-time at Northwestern, so basically starting in 2012. And in the first month or so of that, I don't know exactly what it was. There was just kind of a light bulb moment that, we're 22 years old and everything we were doing was very, very antiquated. It was, paper process, someone scrubs it manually, it goes into a UPS envelope to home office. And I understand that places, some places were different, but what we were experiencing felt very why. Why is this happening? What else is out there? And very quickly we started to learn that this wasn't the only model. I mean, we didn't know much at the time. We didn't know much about the other kind of distribution channels or how advisors built their practices. We just knew one of, a captive agency with 10, 12,000 advisors across the country, and we were exposed to the independent channel. Pat's mom was working actually in process of kind of taking over a successful practice in the Detroit area. And we learned that there are hundreds of thousands of advisors out there that don't have the Northwestern Mutual name over there as an umbrella, right? And we started to understand that these advisors need help. And we learned about some of the distribution channels, but more importantly, we felt that there was just a massive opportunity for technology, specifically in kind of that paper fulfillment application process space. That was really the first, when we had to fill out our own apps, we didn't have staff members, we didn't have assistants, right? We're literally, I'm not joking, we're about to make like a $60 commission on a term case, and we're spending 2 hours on the app, right? So for us, it was just kind of a time value, like, why are we doing what we're doing? And I think, to Pat's credit, he kind of saw the opportunity. Maybe that would be kind of the first entry point into this space for us, is can we take this process and just make it easier? There's 20, 30, 40, 50 insurance companies out there that advisors are doing business with. They all have different forms. It's all state regulated. It's all managed in a crazy way. Can we somehow simplify it? Our original idea was a universal app, like one application that we would send to every carrier. Again, we were 22 and had no idea, so that idea got shot down pretty fast. But what could we do to basically allow advisors to streamline, and not only to make their process more efficient, but just have less errors, less kickbacks, and get business process faster? And that kind of developed our entry point into the company called RepPro, which we co-founded and Pat was the CEO of. And that was kind of our entry point into meeting various players in the IMO, FMO space. We started working with carriers. We had customers and clients like Allianz, American Equity, Security Benefit. They were starting to use our platform. But that was kind of, I think, where we, in a matter of a couple years, we quickly learned not only the technology lack thereof in the space, but also just the ins and outs of the model in the IMO and FMO space as well.
So it's one thing to see a problem. It's another thing to complain about it, which many of us do. It's a completely different thing to actually go out and resolve it. So how did you guys tackle that, right? So you needed to build a technology team, you needed to fund it. Tell us a little bit about how you took that journey actually executing on this idea.
Yeah, it helped when you're living in your parents' basement. That was kind of like step one, was like, get costs of living down as low as possible. No, but Joe and I were kind of like very much ramen noodle style startup, where we were doing this thing for free because we really were excited about it and just liked working on it. I remember I had there were two other co-founders in that business who've actually started a very successful cannabis dispensary, order entry and kind of like the Shopify for cannabis business. And they were actually the technical side of our co-foundership. So it was Zach and Chris, and Zach was the software designer, Chris was a software engineer, and so all four of us would get together at my parents' house and work till 4 o'clock in the morning just because we loved doing it. So it was a little bit of just raw passion and just having a really good time building something together. But I think how did we actually put all the pieces together? Joe and I kind of first came together and said okay, we see this problem. Then we said, well, okay, we need someone to build it. How are we going to do that? We ran into a couple of software engineers that weren't exactly as advertised. We're not as qualified as we originally thought that they were. We paid them some money, so there were a little bit of scars and mistakes that we made along the way for sure. We raised kind of a really small friends and family round in order to pay Zach and Chris as consultants, our two other co-founders. And then we got our first account. Our first account was actually Advisors Excel, which is the largest, I think. From my understanding, the largest distributor of fixed annuities in the United States. And Derek, David, and Cody, I have tremendous respect for those guys. I think all three of them are awesome. And what they've done is incredible. And they were actually the first investors in RepPro, and they kind of said, hey, like, we don't have a solution that will kind of really incorporate across all carriers. And that's what we were building. We were kind of building this universal application. It kind of, took a meandering path a little bit. But as soon as kind of Derek, David, and Cody got behind it and decided to invest in the business, and we showed some real traction, Chris and Zach said, hey, like, we want to come on full time as co-founders. So we all kind of rallied around that inflection point. And that was the moment in time where, like, okay, now we've got the team, both the industry knowledge and the technical talent. We have the capital. We have initial customers. And that was really the launch point for the business. So that was maybe, 3 or 4 years of pounding the pavement to really kind of figure it all out. And that I just explained in 3 minutes or so. But that's more or less the origin story.
Hey,
Yeah,
Pat,
well,
did you stay at Northwestern this whole time, or were you had you already taken the leap of faith to kind of branch out on your own, or were you kind of wearing two hats for a while?
I did a lot of, so like, I was at Northwestern Mutual and then I had left, and I was like, I went through this moment in time where I'm like, I got to work on this thing 100%. I don't care if I don't have any money yet. I just got to work on this thing 100%. And then I got courted by my parents. They're like, you've got to make some money. You've got to do something. Like, get out of my basement. And so I actually went to go work. Joe and I went to go work at the financial advisory firm that they were purchasing, kind of like a part-time thing. And so that kind of bridged the gap as we kind of moved over into the independent space. And that's how we met Derek, David, and Cody. Is their distributor. Kelly Capital Partners is the name of the firm. Their distributor was Advisors Excel. And so, we kind of came to them with this idea. We started producing some production. They're like, okay, these guys, who are they? They're 22 years old and they're actually writing annuity business. They're talking to, somewhere between 50 and 75 years old. Like, so we were the youngest people at all of these conferences. And then we just kind of struck up the relationship and built it from there. So we actually thought of RepPro at Northwestern Mutual, kind of like the impetus of the idea, but really kind of built it out and then ended up leaving Kelly Capital Partners as we started to gain some significant traction.
Yeah, well, I remember back, I think we connected in 2012 or 2013, Pat, and
We did.
I saw what I saw what you were doing. I thought it was great, and maybe we just talk a little bit about. I'd love to get Joe, your perspective as well on how do you actually drive change here in this business? Do you let agents pull you? How much do you pull them? How much do you present? What the future may look like? Because I'll tell you, this is another company, so nobody, present company, can say, hey, that was not us. I remember, taking your stuff in and saying to our team, look, this is terrific. Now, it's better, faster, produces applications quicker. You've got connections with some of these agents. Why don't we give them a try? And it's kind of shocking, like, how many people in this business will say, cheaper, faster, better, old thing I know. Paul, I'll take the old thing I know because I know it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And Pat, let me know if I'm right here, but I believe, at least from the timing, we were a little bit ahead of the game. We were kind of, at least in the fixed index annuity space, when it came to electronic applications, we actually brought a solution first to market before. I mean, Firelight Insurance Technologies had been around. They obviously had success other places, but they hadn't really released what is now obviously a very dominant platform. They hadn't released that yet. So when we would show some of these, annuity or insurance carriers what we had, it was kind of a little bit of that. Well, is it the right time? Is it too soon? Is it the right solution at the right time? And which was interesting to kind of see. It was hard for us. We always felt like there was multiple players that we had to address, because a lot of the independent advisory space, as you all know, the advisor is actually not the one doing the application. It's their team. It's their assistant, their staff, someone that comes in and actually takes the app. So a lot of times we're thinking about how the staff would react, not just the advisor, because they're really, at the end of the day, potentially the power user is someone's assistant. So we had to think about that, but it's always hard to move change. It has to be significantly better, right? It can't just be twice as good. It has to be, 10x better or something like that. So we'd always be thinking about saving time. But it's interesting because it led us down this path, actually, to think about other ways we could improve the business. And actually, some of those things are what we're doing now at Signal. But it made us think about, can we process applications faster? Can we assist in suitability? Can we provide recommendations when certain questions are answered a certain way to help with the carrier's rules? Can we do some things like, so we started thinking about these things, but it was a heavy focus on really talking to a core niche group of users through the IMO channel that we had and understanding what we thought would be the best way to really come up with something that, people wanted to use, they weren't forced to use.
Remarkable. So, all right. So, go ahead.
No, go for it, Ramsey.
Well, I was just gonna look. I like this. I like this walkthrough, and there's more to this story. And so the next step is you combine with Retire Up, and now you've got this planning component. So take us. If we can actually follow this story right up to present day, I think this is a great narrative. So let's go on to the next step.
Yeah, next step is we connect with the guys over at Nexus, and this is all kind of in the DOLs in the backdrop. So everyone's thinking about, okay, how do we provide a process that like basically meets the best interest standard, that also is not so cumbersome where it totally brings sales to a screeching halt. And so the idea was, okay, if you can connect the planning platform with the application process, and have the software understand that based on the way that you're moving things inside of that software, you can actually create an audit trail of the conversation that was being had with the client, and then have the client attest to that as they go through the signing ceremony through that application. Now you've got this process that kind of, it's the sales process, but also it kind of meets that standard and makes it super simple, and it's all happening in the background. And so that was kind of, that was kind of the reason why all that came together, where Retire Up and RepPro came together to create Retire Up Pro, and Nexus decided to buy both of those businesses. DOL didn't really end up happening, but what we did create was, what was really important, I think, about that combination was the teams. So we were both really good at different things, and so kind of like Retire Up and RepPro coming together, I think really created a complete business in terms of the skill set. And so that was essentially what happened there. We created a next gen product. Retire Up had their kind of traditional classic Retire Up program that was really great. And honestly, I think today it still is kind of the best at showing what a fixed index annuity can do in a sales situation with a client. It's like, okay, I get that, I can get a guaranteed income stream for life, but how does that affect my financial plan, or how does that affect the things that I can do in my life? And I think Retire Up really displays that well to a client, so it helps you explain the benefits of an annuity. I haven't really seen anyone do it quite that same way. And then RepPro, I still think had kind of the simplest interface for filling out an application, and so you combine those two things, it just makes the workflow really, really simple.
Yeah. So you guys have brought all this technology platform together for end-to-end utilization. You've got the upfront commission component, which is obviously very unique, and I think the third component that you have in your model is also very unique that we haven't touched on yet, and that's you don't use marketers. Can you talk a little bit about how you incorporate the agent into that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It's one of those things actually where we've always said. So Joe and I have a lot of friends who are marketers, by the way, and I actually, all the ones that I know are pretty good. I think the real issue is not the people. It's the role for us, which is it breaks as you get bigger and more successful as an IMO or as a marketer. The value that you provide gets diluted because you're just trying to help a lot of you're one person trying to help a lot of people, and that's just really, really hard. So what we wanted to do was create a model, because when we built this business, I mean, look, we're venture backed. We haven't talked about that at all, but we raised $6 million In our seed round, we're announcing by the time this comes out, we will have announced it. We're announcing this week that we raised $10 million from General Catalyst as our lead investor. So we raised about $16 million to date. And really, the way that I think about this is, if you look at a company like Quicken Loans, one of our investors is Dan Gilbert. You look at a business like Quicken Loans, they have specialists. They have, the person who, decides that does the mortgage, that sells you the mortgage origination, doesn't process and get the loan approved. There's several people in there specializing in different components of that transaction and of that sale. And so what we wanted to do is create a system, one that's scaled because we had ambitions to grow big and add a lot of value, but also one that had specialists owning every single piece of the process. So, the marketer, it depends how big or small the IMO is, but at a smaller IMO, the marketer's doing everything. I mean, they're doing new business, they're doing, case design and running illustrations. And so what we've done at Signal Advisors is not that we don't think the idea of a marketer adds value, but more so compartmentalized all of those departments to specialists. So we have a case design team that are just cold product experts. They know product cold. We have a new business team. We have a sales team. We have a marketing team that brings advisors in and introduces them to our sales team, marketing qualified leads, and our sales team converts them. And then our onboarding team, onboards them. And, the team that Joe's in charge of, the advisor success team, really owns that advisor relationship and makes sure that as they're experiencing the Signal Advisors platform or way, that they kind of have the best in class service. And then on top of that, what we've done is we've actually layered in this coaching model, which is now this peer-to-peer coach. So you basically have a top financial advisor who's done, let's say, generally the cutoff is around $30 million in annuity production. And they work with smaller producers, let's say, somewhere between $3 and $5 million producers that want to grow to 30 million, and they show them the way. And so the idea is you don't work with more than 10 people on your team. So you kind of have these pods that in these teams that can scale up. So even as Signal Advisors, crosses $1 billion and into $7 billion in annuity production, we'll always have this team component where you're working with a maximum of 10 people on your team, and you're kind of getting that one-on-one coaching or that coaching in that more intimate setting. So that's how we think about no marketers, is more kind of restructuring the way that we interact with advisors, hopefully to provide, I always say, like, no marketers doesn't mean no service. It actually means more specialized, better service, is the way that we structure the business.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that's got to be an appeal to the large producers coming on too, if they're going to be involved in a much broader process of distribution.
Yeah. And I would say too, I think one point that is kind of a common theme through all this, we just were able to learn a lot, right? I mean, we had, kind of the connection point from kind of going from that Retire Up, Rep Pro and Nexus combination relationship to Signal is, we spent a lot of time working with IMOs and FMOs as our customers, right? We spent a lot of time understanding what value they were, the value they were adding, kind of where the compensation was going, what the roles were providing at each point. And then once, Pat took the opportunity to leave Retire Up and go reconnect and start Signal, we just kind of parlayed everything we learned, and we're able to bring, we don't talk about this a ton, but we actually tested and came up with our advanced commission idea at RepPro, and it never launched. So we actually built this idea to pay commissions instantly. We basically tested it out amongst a group of advisors, and kind of, I think, Pat, we have original designs and build on that we never actually did at RepPro, that we ultimately, obviously became kind of a focal point at Signal. So it was cool to kind of take a lot of those things you learn and then bring them into this business. And, we've definitely made some changes, like the no marketers, but I will say that that point is always questioned. But then I think once the advisors come into the system and see how the specialists work and have the ability to talk directly with a coach that they would idolize on stage in an event that's now just a cell phone text message away, when they have those parts of the business being backfilled and the service being delivered on, it's actually like, wow, this is, I was weird at first to hear no marketers, but this is working.
Interesting. Kind of back to your instant commissions. I mean, this is not cannabis. This is like heroin for agents who are like, look, working hard to get client relationships. Why should I wait now? I mean, you think what that could mean for an advisor to have their money come in instantly? I mean, that could help fuel the right advisors to reinvest quicker and more into their business. So I think you do this right. That will change some businesses.
I think that's right, actually. I think the intuition when people first hear it, depending on the person, if you're more skeptical, you're kind of like, okay, that's a novelty. But we've got really big advisors that we're advancing a ton of money to, $100 million advisors, $70 million advisors. And it's not about, and look, those aren't just one advisors, but they've got a team. But, the relationship with work changes. You go into a client meeting and you've spent 5 or 6 hours with them over, let's say, 3, 4, 5 meetings to kind of like bring over all the retirement assets and to manage it. And some of it goes to an annuity. That's a long process. And, when they say yes in that meeting, you're probably 45 to 60 days out from actually getting paid. So changing that to where they say yes in that meeting and the next day you get this really kind of like beautifully designed email that says, hey, you're getting whatever the amount of money is, $14,000 in your bank account. We just sent you the ACH. Also, by the way, it isn't just getting paid faster. It's called TruePay. And it's actually in this email, you'll see, okay, here's this line item. This was the client. This was the agent. This is how much premium it was. It's all the details. When I was an advisor and I got paid, I would get a spreadsheet and it'd be like, okay, now I got to kind of go into Excel and figure it all out. So one, getting paid faster is a big deal. And I guess my point there was it's affecting big advisors and small advisors. To your point, Paul, they can actually reinvest in their practice. It's not just about cash flow, like trying to keep the lights on. It's actually about picking up steam. We actually did an analysis and think we can turn our money 3 to 4 times faster with TruePay, so you can actually enable kind of a new level of growth in your business by being able to reinvest 3 or 4 times faster into your business. But also kind of the transparency that you get, so you can actually understand, okay, like this money came from this person and this advisor wrote that app, and kind of extrapolating that out to every application across your entire business. There's real value in the transparency of data that you're getting from the platform, and all of that's done, again, without any kind of like human intervention. I mean, the advisor just submits their application through Signal Advisors, and you kind of get everything that I just talked about.
Well, yeah, and just to amplify what you're saying, a lot of people don't really think about working capital in this business. And, really, even though we're working with paper and abstract processes, there are a lot of similarities. Because if I'm in the seminar business, right, okay, I've got at least a traditional one. Okay, pay for all the mailings, put the deposits down, get the people in, have meeting 1, 2, 3, finally get that application, get the commission. You're talking about, look, I may have invested $200,000 in January. I might not actually see the money coming out until March, April, May. If I can compress that, if I can shorten half, wait a second, I can run those, afford to do more seminars. So I think you're saying makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you one question, which is you've already kind of asked, but I'd like to talk about the value prop for IMOs of the future. Like I think back early 2000s when I started to see the IMOs pop up. I was working, same kind of company like you were with a career system. They're saying, why are all these people going independent? Okay, well, you kind of have to laugh at the value prop back then. Hey, Ramsey, come work with me. I'll give you lots of carrier choice, not just one product, one carrier. Oh, wow. Oh, by the way, I'll give this thing where you can put your information in and it will track all your accounts and clients, and I'm going to call it I have my proprietary CRM that you can use. I'll do some lead generation for you, right? I'll give you like some names and numbers to call. Pat, like, whoa, try that today to recruit people. So you've given us some good reasons. So like, help me. It sounds like you're going to help me with coaching. Like, okay, check the box. Do you help me coach? Do you help me take my business to the next level, do you help me finance? Are you now effectively a financing partner for me to help finance my business, cheap source of financing? What are kind of the other elements you think, if you were to fast forward 3 years out, what are the other elements that are going to be key for any agent to be successful in this business they should expect from an IMO?
I would say the reality is that, look, just like a car company, you're not a car company anymore, you're a technology company. I mean, everyone's heard that kind of, it's almost a cliche at this point. Like, you're not a pizza company, you're a technology company who makes pizza. I think about that as financial distribution. Like, there's this huge problem in the independent channel. I think, one, like, we're making a bet, like I said at the beginning, on independent financial advisors. And I think that's where people want to go. Consumers want to go there. If you walk into a financial advisor's office, you don't want to just get whatever product they happen to have because they're just how they're hooked up on the back end from a distribution perspective. You want to get what's the best plan for your situation. So I just think independent financial advisors are the future. But I think the problem is that insurance companies, distribution, they're not technologically enabled. So if you were a financial advisor, how do you plug into those systems? It's frustrating because you're trying to scale and start up a business, but your partners are not, providing you with the ability to actually plug in and use these systems. It's like, you want to use a CRM, and every advisor is so frustrated with their CRM, but they don't actually have it hooked in to any of their business partners. In any other business, these things are totally wired in, and there's so much automation around them. And so, now there's all of this real kind of incentive where you can really see the leverage that you get from using a CRM. Everyone in the financial services space that I know who's a financial advisor uses their CRM like a Rolodex. They say, hey, I want to call somebody. They type their name in and they go get their phone number. But like generally a CRM in most other industries is so much more than that. So I just think that in order to kind of like be in this game as a distributor, it's interesting. You're sitting in the middle. And so I think distributors themselves are in a very unique position to build software to help enable the sales force. And I think you have to be a software company, and that to me means an end-to-end software platform that kind of very much plugs into an advisor's business and gives them all of this data so they can run a more effective business, a smarter business.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat and Joe. Earlier you mentioned something that I thought was very intriguing. You said initially you were exploring a universal app or universal application, and then you ran into a dead end. How far did you get, pursuing that, and where did you land? Did you get 50% there, or like what are you doing now? What's the value play you offer now in that area?
Well, it's funny that this is kind of where things kind of come back full circle. But we initially, at the time when we graduated college, the Common App, if you guys are familiar, the Common App for college was, I don't want to say just starting, but kind of like now, when you talk to, I think, generations applying to college, it's very popular and has been. But at the time, it was just kind of starting, and it was kind of the vision that if we could basically create one form that maybe depending on the carrier or the state, it would have a couple things added in that were specific, but kind of building like one universal questionnaire that you could fire off to any company was the original vision. And we built out basically like a question prototype of what that was. We never actually built it into an automated software. And then it's funny, we had, I don't remember, Pat, if it was lunch or someone with a gentleman that was just like, hey, and he gave us a number of real reasons based on like state regulation and different applications and NAIC and all these things that we didn't know at the time. We just like, this will never work. You're going to have to build something that will ultimately still sit on a state-specific carrier, product-specific app. And that's when we built a universal interface. So we took our idea from a universal app to a common data entry platform that took the data and fired it to each individual actual carrier PDF. So, we thought at the time we changed our model from kind of a general form that was done to a general form fill that still filled in all the things needed on each app. And, now to answer your question, we have a custom Firelight embedded solution. So we're actually using at the time what was a competitor to RepPro, but we've now, because of where we're at in this business, with the adoption at all the carriers, we know we need to have that. and Pat, if you want to touch on it, you can, but we've got a unique embedded Firelight solution that sits right inside of the Signal platform. So it's really nice that we carries a lot of our design elements, but it is Firelight.
Well, I think that actually dovetails nicely into Paul's question, which is like, what do distributors need to do in the future in order to add value to financial advisors? I think an all-in-one place, like a one-stop shop for all of your carrier relationships, for all of your new business updates, for all of your in-force policy information. We didn't talk about that at all, but we got something pretty unique on that side too, which is our one-click annual review process, making the annual review process, let's say 3 minutes in prep time instead of 40. Calling into insurance companies, going to carrier websites, pulling all that information down, creating your own custom reports. We do all that on the back end through different integrations, some manual work that we kind of compensate for. But we basically build out this really kind of streamlined in-force policy management system on our back end. It's kind of crazy. You sell a 10-year product and you don't have really kind of like any performance reporting. You've got no way to notify yourself of when these annual reviews are coming up. Like, as an advisor, I'd be like stumbling over my files. I'd find a case that makes sense to like call on and have a conversation with the client. And that's how, we'd like engage with our clients on an annual basis. That feels like really antiquated. And also the fact that we're just like not servicing our clients in the way that we've all intended to when we get into this business originally. And that to me is just a process and technology problem. It's not advisors want to do it. I think every advisor you talk to, they're frustrated they're not doing more of these or don't have a good system around it. So we've really built one out, and we've kind of built out this entire in-force policy management system. Sorry, I'm talking a lot about Signal advisors, but I just think, I think the IMO of the future, and really for me, you guys, like IMO of the future, that's one thing that we're looking at. I think independent financial advisors will offer a wider array of services. And that's kind of like, that's why we raised this $10 million from General Catalyst. It's what we're expanding into: RIA, life insurance, mortgage, Medicare supplement, banking, all in one cohesive platform, push button, get financial advisory services, and being able to stand this business up and scale it, and having a multifaceted approach to all the different tools in your tool belt as a financial advisor. I just feel like when you look at an independent advisor who is standing up their own business and they sell annuities, manage money, and life insurance, let's say, like, where's your mortgage? Where's your banking services? Where's your Medicare supplement? I mean, why wouldn't you work with the client in their total capacity? I think it's been, obviously you've got a knowledge gap that you got to fill. But also I think the bigger thing is like, how do you actually go about doing that stuff? So we're going to build out a system that makes it super simple to plug in kind of like any line of business you want in a very modular approach, all in this kind of like tightly encased user experience. So that's kind of the vision where we're taking this thing. We started with annuities because I think there's so much to do there. And we have a 10-year background in building out software for annuities and being financial advisors. But also I just think it's a nascent space. And honestly, I like this idea, but it's like, if we didn't do this, I'm not sure that there would have been a real technology-enabled IMO in the space. I haven't seen one. I haven't even talked to one that's kind of even close to doing something like this. So I think you're probably like very far out from having something like this if we didn't do it. And that was one of the other reasons. It's like, I really think we need this as financial advisors, like this kind of like all-encompassing platform that helps you run your business better. So anyways, I know that was a little bit of a monologue, but I got excited.
Well, it's well-deserved. I mean, look, there's a lot of people that talk about solving individual problems, but the thing you've consistently done is you've found specific parts of the value chain to address, and you've attacked them, and it's yielding real benefits. So fantastic model.
No, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Listen.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say certainly very forward thinking in terms of what you're bringing together. In fact, even the timing, I think of when you guys first established Signal Advisors in 2019. You look, fast forward 2020 comes along. You've already got this digital platform, end-to-end user process in place. How did that impact the trajectory of your growth? Being that you're really already prepared for everything that took place last year.
I think what it did was it made a lot of people are really comfortable. I think Paul had mentioned this. It's like, hey, especially they're like, hey, I've already been doing this for this long. If it's not broken, don't fix it, kind of a thing. I think what 2020 did was make people lift their heads up and say, hey, like I know the world was changing, but now it's changing way faster than ever before. And if I'm going to survive, or if my business model is going to work, I need to pick my head up and see what's out there. So I think what it really did was allow us to kind of get initial conversations, which I think is all you can really ask for. So we saw a lot of growth in initial conversations. And I think you'll actually continue to see this is like there will be more transitions in the IMO space than ever before, as people kind of lift their heads up and say, what value prop am I getting? How do I kind of stay relevant in this market? And so that's what we've seen is just kind of like a big influx of demos. That's the other thing that you'll find with us, like how do we first engage? Generally, we actually walk you through a platform demo to show you kind of like the differentiation. This is maybe a bad thing to say, but I find that everyone in the IMO space talks about how different they are, and then when you kind of peel back the layers, it's a lot of the same old stuff. So we actually like to kind of get right into a demo and say, hey, look, here's our technology stack. You can see it's best in class. Everyone says they have really good technology. I tend to find that's not the case. So we go right into a demo and talk about how we built this platform and how it can help you run your business better. So we've seen a lot of people move, is I guess the short answer. Mm-hmm. I think everyone's wondering about what's going to work on the marketing side. And that's actually another thing that we're launching. Maybe we're giving you guys a couple firsts here on this show that we haven't actually talked to many people about, but we're launching something called Magic Meetings, which is actually appointments set for you on your calendar at no upfront cost, and then we split the commission on the back end. It's actually kind of like we've got some good partners in that business. We've got a call center in Rock Connections, which is a Rocket Mortgage kind of family of companies. So we already had kind of the DNA to do something like this. So we actually so instead of buying leads and converting them 20-1, which is generally what you would get from like a smart asset or something like that, we actually have the first conversation, kind of pre-qualify the potential client, and then or prospect, and then we set the meeting on the calendar for the advisor, generally restricted to geography, although we've been doing a lot of testing on remote-based selling too. So we've been in beta on that business I say business because it literally is almost like a different business that we're building out, for maybe the last 2 or 3 months, with some really, really strong results, looking at kind of like fully launching it in July. And that's all software backed. We've got and we've kind of been just kind of testing it and tweaking it with a small set of advisors. But that's another thing, right? So instead of converting it 20-1, we kind of have this whole entire process, so then you can convert it 4-1. We put an appointment on your calendar, you have the conversation. I just find that so many advisors, from a marketing perspective, are so familiar with seminars. So what they'll do is they got this whole entire process around seminars that they've built out for the last, honestly 10, 20 years, where they've been curating this and kind of massaging this process, and they've got it down. When an advisor from a seminar walks into their office, they're closing it at 32.3%, and they know that. On the digital side, when you buy a lead, it's much different, and I actually find that advisors tend to treat those digital leads the same as a seminar lead, or they think they're just as far down the funnel when they come into the office. And so I think that's kind of the problem that I would describe we're fixing here, which is like now we're actually getting to those same close rates. We're actually getting, we're seeing 30% close rates instead of, like a 5% close rate. Anyways, that to me is what Magic Meeting solves. Is kind of it allows that digital lead conversion process, once the advisor interacts with it, to be kind of more in line with those close rates that they were getting from a traditional dinner seminar.
And it's interesting because I would just add that, the last year of this has just forced everyone to look at this through a different lens, right? I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, Pat talked about the seminar. We've got advisors that just didn't know. They knew what they were doing for the last 20 years, and now they don't. And I think when you've got a shock to the system like that, it requires you to think about things differently, and it requires others to, for the first time, be like, I would have never left XYZ IO, but wait a second, what else is out there? And it benefited us in that way, at least I don't want to say it leveled the playing field. We've got a lot of strong competition that we have a lot of respect for, but it gave us an opportunity to open conversations that we maybe couldn't. And a launch platforms like Magic Meetings. And the thing that's I think so cool about how that fits into our general mindset is, we've talked about paying commissions instantly. Well, if we're providing you leads that you can close at a relatively positive clip that you don't pay for, we just close the gap to zero. It's net zero now. You don't pay going out and you get it instantly. So the vision is to kind of make that world where there's no out of pocket and you get it right away. And for that advisor to be able to continue to double down then and reinvest in their business, this program that we're in kind of in beta with is something that we're just extremely excited about, because it has been a problem forever. I talk to so many advisors. What's your biggest issue? Oh, it's putting butts in seats, right? It always is. I got to get people at my events. Well, that's always going to be a problem. But the pandemic opened up how big of a problem that can be and which ways you can fix it. And we know that if we can solve that problem in addition to what else we're doing, we'll be able to kind of ride that success.
No, this is great. You've got a platform that, if I'm a good advisor, should allow me to do more of what I do best, which is have conversations and help people implement plans. So this is great. Now, we're right at the top of our time. And first of all, I want to thank all of you. Joe, Pat, thanks for showing up. Thanks for giving us your time and, all the support you've given us as well. Ramsey, Will, or Mark, any final questions or comments here?
Just a quick comment. Thanks a lot, guys. You have a lot on your plate, a lot of exciting ideas, a lot of exciting initiatives. I love the enthusiasm and the energy you're bringing to bear. So I'll be watching, and hopefully you'll come on again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been a blast. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words too, Will.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate the direction you guys are going and the impact that you're having on the industry. So thank you for not only coming on the show, but also for all the work you're doing out there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo that. So I thought I knew a lot of what you guys were doing, and I learned so much more in this discussion. And I'm just particularly intrigued with the way you guys think about the business. You are addressing the right problems and you're taking action on them. And in particular, this idea of sort of increasing the velocity of transactions. I think that's a brilliant approach. So good luck, and I plan on staying in touch.
Okay,
well,
more information
we'll
at signaladvisors.com. Yeah, this is great. So if anyone wants more information, I assume it's your website, signaladvisors.com. Is that right?
Yeah, signaladvisors.com. You can book a demo. I think we're on every social channel too. So like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Reach out. We'd love to have a conversation, even if it's just exploratory. We're always down for a chat.
And congrats on your funding.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
This is listen, great to hear success like this. It's
thank you.
And what do they say? Overnight success, I think, is like a long journey.
a decade in the making, maybe. That would be my spin on it.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah. So listen, congratulations, thanks, and everybody for listening. Thanks for sticking through with us. I think. Look, if I were an agent or another IMO, I'd be thinking a lot about what my future may hold for me. So good luck. Thanks for listening, and tune in again next week for, I don't know, episode 99 or 100. We'll have to figure this one out, Ramsey, before we get
Thereabouts.
on.
All right.
Thereabouts. All right. Hey, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.